So the first thing I'd just like to say is obviously good afternoon and welcome to this wish session all about female gambling. And it's an awareness raising session looking at the impact really on mental health and what we can really do, I suppose, in terms of support and recognising female gambling. So, as you can see, the session's being delivered by Rowan Davies, who's the Welsh Gambling Awareness Coordinator. And Rowan's got over 20 years of experience working in the fields of mental health, substance abuse, and gambling addiction. And what he's going to be covering with us this afternoon is the rise of female gambling, the challenges associated with gambling in women, the identification of problem gambling, and best practice approaches to resilience and to recovery. But I'm sure Rowan will do a much better job of describing his role and giving a better introduction to himself than I could possibly do. So in a moment, I will hand over to Rowan. What it is just worth saying is I actually haven't got that email yet, Rowan.
Yeah, I just sent it to you now, so it should have come through.
Right, not got it yet. I'm sure it'll be with us in a sec. But so yes, Rowan, I'm sure will do a much better introduction to himself than I can possibly do. But before I hand over, just I suppose a couple of little housekeeping things. Feel free to have your camera on or off. That's absolutely fine. And yes, I think everybody's done this already, but if everybody put themselves on mute, that would be brilliant, because there's always some comedy noise that comes somewhere, isn't it, in the background? And there will be a couple of points where Rowan will ask for our opinions or our views and for our hands to be raised. But of course, if we don't have our cameras on, or if we want to use the chat function to raise our hands, that's absolutely brilliant anyway. And do use the chat function as well to ask any questions. And Rowan might take some of those as we're going along, but certainly at the end, there will be the opportunity. Oh, we've got something coming up. No, right. There will be the opportunity at the end to ask any further questions anyway. So I'm going to hand over to Rowan now, whilst I have a look and see if I can find in my email to be able to share the slides. Is that okay with you, Rowan? Right, brilliant.
Of course it is, yeah.
Right, great.
Of course it is. Okay, so thank you all for attending today. So, like Lucy said, so my name is Rowan. I'm the Welsh Women's Gambling Coordinator for South Wales and for Adferiad as well. I joined Adferiad after for about 5 months now. I've worked 15 years in the gambling industry, 5 years as well with mental health, so 20 years in total, but 15 years in the gambling industry. I was a senior deputy general manager with Casa Bingo, if any of you heard of it. That's the presentation. That's the...
Yeah. You'll have to say next slide, please. I'm afraid now we're in this position, Rowan.
That's fine.
Okay.
So ultimately now it's my aim now to use my experience and knowledge to increase the awareness around gambling and gambling harms for women as well. So Adferiad, I don't know if any of you have heard of it, is a member-led charity that provides help and support for people with mental health issues, addictions, co-occurring complex needs, and the ultimate aim is to maximise their personal potential and to achieve a better quality of life. So the course today will raise some awareness of gambling behaviours and some interventions to support those who gamble, especially in regards to women. So if we can go on the next slide.
Can you see the next slide, everybody?
If you start the slideshow, it might be easier for you, I don't know.
Sorry, what did you say, Rowan?
If you say press start slideshow, it might you might be able to click through then.
I am clicking through, but can you not see that, everybody else?
It doesn't matter. What we'll do is I'll just do the content and then I can send the slides out then, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. Don't do that. So the aim of the course today is to improve awareness of support available for women, improve awareness of the harm gambling can cause, improve awareness of the risks and signs of gambling harms among women, and increase mechanisms which support women to have a voice. So you're not going to be able to do this bit at the minute because I haven't got a QR code I can send you, but I might be able to put it to the chat. So what I'll do is I'll copy the QR code onto the chat. and then hopefully then you guys can fill in the form that's available on there. So just give me 2 seconds. I'll post that into the chat now. Two seconds.
Hello.
So
Not sure if that was somebody answering their phone, maybe.
the link doesn't seem to be working either for the chat. So what I'll do is we'll just do that a little bit later on. All that is, so basically that little questionnaire will try to test your awareness before the course starts in terms of gambling behaviours and gambling related harms as well. So it is quite useful. So what I'll do is I will send that through a little later on, and hopefully Lucy then can kind of distribute it to you guys as well.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
we can
really
do.
useful for you guys to go through the whole thing. Okay.
Mhm.
So what is gambling? So can you think of a few words or a short sentence that you can think of when you hear the term gambling?
I think, if I'm really honest, when I hear gambling, I think of horse racing. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Bingo.
bingo, slot machines,
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I
scratch
can see a
cards,
few coming through in the chat. Debt, thrill,
scratch
yeah, that's a good
cards.
one.
risk.
Yes, definitely. It's all those things. The Gambling Act, when you look at the definition, it doesn't really help. So the Gambling Act defines gambling as betting, gaming, or participating in a lottery as a leisure activity. So basically, it's completely broad, that definition, isn't it? It covers so many aspects of gambling. So indeed, gambling is a popular pastime for many people, with almost half of UK adults stating they've gambled at least once in the past month. That's in a recent survey completed by the Gambling Commission. So there are many, many gambling trends. Some of you have mentioned them just now in the chat as well. So in terms of the gambling trends, you've got online casinos, bingo websites, bingo halls, online poker, casinos, sports betting, scratch cards, lottery. You've got gambling machines or slot machines, penny pushers, picking a horse in the Grand National, raffles, sweepstakes, and competition raffles and giveaways as well. Any of you kind of surprised by those and you think, oh, I didn't realize that was kind of gambling?
No, now you've said it, but like I just recently joined up for the People's Postcode Lottery, and it didn't cross my mind really that
Yeah,
that was proper
yeah.
gambling, especially when I then won, 12 quid almost straight away. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. But yeah, I think yeah, yeah.
I think most people are surprised by the fact that kind of you've got like sweepstakes and things like that.
Raffles, I wouldn't have
But
thought raffles.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. I know. It's all an element of risk, isn't it? I think there's all an element of risk
Mm.
involved, and that's what kind of they perceive it as gambling then. And that's what I mean when you look at the definition, it's so broad and it covers so many aspects of it as well.
Helen made a
So
lovely point there and said it's a real spectrum, isn't it, in
yes,
the chat?
yes, definitely. Of course it is, yeah. So in terms of what percentage of the adult population in Wales gambled in 2022, 2023, would you say is 31%, 41%, 51%, or 68%? 68, a couple of saying, yeah. So definitely, so 68% of people 18 or over say they've taken part in some form of gambling in Wales. That figure, for me, I think is going to be higher now in 2023, 2024. I think that figure is building each year. So I think if they took the figure kind of this year, you kind of look at more than 70%, I would say.
Rowan, can I just ask, is that the same across the UK? Because obviously you're coming from a Welsh perspective, but I imagine it's pretty similar.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a little bit less when you look at it as a UK. I think it was around 65%. For some odd reason, the Welsh like to gamble, so 68%. So in terms of you can't see this slide, but recent UK surveys of gambling behaviour have shown that men are more likely to gamble than women and are more likely to experience harms from gambling. But unfortunately, the information on that slide is not entirely accurate. So the information from Public Health Wales shows that the reason why men are more likely to suffer harm is because they are more likely to seek help and admit they are suffering from gambling harms. So the stigma attached to women who gamble is far greater than men, which ultimately results in less women seeking help when they need it most. So the whole point of this project at Feriad now is we are moving to break that stigma down and allow more women to seek help when they need it most. So for every one person directly affected by gambling, it is estimated that 6 others are also affected. But the actual figure is 4.3 million people are affected by another person's gambling. So as you imagine, that figure is quite staggering, isn't it?
Mm.
So gambling in Wales is increasing each year. 55% of adults aged 16 or over spend money on some form of gambling. In 2016, 0.8% of adults, were identified as problem gamblers, with 3.3% of those being deemed at risk. So the estimates of the health, welfare, employment, and housing and criminal justice costs incurred by problem gamblers is around 40 to 70 million pound in Wales. So these figures now have clearly prompted significant public and political debate about the health and social impacts around gambling. So let's have a look at the reasons now as to why somebody would gamble. So what do you think would be the reasons why somebody would choose to gamble?
Mental health.
Yeah.
Maybe mental health, suffering from stress, just trying to get a bit of relief.
An escape.
Fun.
Yeah, that's the biggest one, yeah.
Fun and
Trying to
escape.
get some money, see
Boredom.
the gap in their lives. Yeah, there's lots and lots of reasons why people will gamble. Again, so some of the main reasons that I've come up with here are kind of poverty, boredom, so fixed feelings, so avoiding life. They may be trying to escape from what's actually happening in their lives. Keeping up with appearances. You're trying to get that money to try and keep up with appearances of other people. Chasing the highs. The learned behaviour. So this is quite interesting. So, but like playing cards with your granddad or your grandparents as a kid, it's all learned behaviour, isn't it? You've also got trauma. That completely affects someone's gambling as well. So there's lots of reasons there why people would gamble. Again, that list is not exhaustive. There's lots and lots and lots of other ways and reasons why people kind of go into gambling. So we're going to move on now to have a look at the reasons in particular why women would gamble. Have any of you got any idea why reasons in particular women would gamble? I think this one's a little bit more complicated.
Possibly not seeing it as gambling. I joined obviously just a wee bit later, but
Yeah.
things like going to the bingo, things like doing the lottery, they're not seen as like traditional gambling, even though they are.
Yes.
So it's that aspect of, oh, it's a wee bit of a flutter, it's a wee bit of this. Whereas gambling, casinos, bets, bookies, whatever you call it, that more masculine, gendered aspect, they would see that as gambling, but they would not necessarily see that as social aspect of the social interaction of going to the bingo or playing bingo games or playing bingo apps on your phone and stuff, because it's promoted as a positive social activity.
Yeah, And it's sort of it's often related to socializing, isn't it? I mean, you go to these gamble events, a bit bingo and things like that, and you often kind of seen it as just a bit of socializing, really. But that could always start, isn't it? It always starts in terms of you start going to bingo with your friends, then all of a sudden, then you start coming on your own, and then all of a sudden, then you start being quite secretive about it. Yeah, there's a couple coming through in the comments there. So you've got home pressures, looking for a big win. That's definitely it, from my experience, definitely. Obviously, seeing people come to the bingo and things like that. It's often people escaping the fact that they're in the house on their own, alone, and things like that. But coming to bingo as well, what I found was people would often lie about coming to bingo as well. There were so often people who said they were kind of going off to the kind of food shop, and they'd end up in the bit kind of bingo hall and things like that. So women who gamble are often very secretive about it. So that's definitely something to look out for as well. But the reasons why in particular women could gamble, so these are just some of the reasons here. So you got empty nest syndrome, hormonal, low mood, low self-esteem during your menstrual cycle as well. PMDD, have any of you heard of that? So premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Yeah. So I had a chat with an individual, Stacey, about a month ago now, and she's been diagnosed with PMDD. Now, the GP she spoke to said that this is directly linked to her addiction. So she was a gambling addict. She went through treatment and everything like that as well. But she has said now that since she's been diagnosed with PMDD and she's been treated with antidepressants, it's allowed her to stay in control of her gambling. Because what they said was that the 2 weeks prior to her starting her period, that's when she's more at risk of subjecting to gambling harms. Yeah, so it's quite interesting.
Is that
So,
what Vicky, is Vicky Patterson get that? Like, who was on Geordie Shore? Is that what she's been speaking about recently?
I haven't seen that actually. Have there any more information on that one?
Yeah, she does a lot of talking about it, doesn't she, Amanda?
Yeah.
Vicky.
I don't know if it is the same, but I know that it is to do with our our
Yeah.
menstrual cycle and stuff, and the negative impact that it can have on her.
It's Vicky,
Oh, right.
Vicky Patterson. Yeah.
That's
Charlotte
interesting, that
mentioned
is.
maths there as well. There's somebody currently on the Married at First Sight, if people don't know what maths is, who suffers from PDD. That's the first time I've ever heard of it, having seen
Yeah.
about it on that programme.
Wow, that's interesting. And like, it's funny, only a month ago I'd heard of that as well. So it's good that it's kind of getting out there and the exposure for it is getting out there because people need to know about it. People definitely need to know about it because you need to know about it in order to treat it as well. So the other reasons why women would gamble, so you got daytime competitions, advertisements. So you got those are hitting the most vulnerable people during the day, aren't they? So you got new mothers, life changes, going back to work after giving birth, needing to keep up with appearances. Usually the main caregiver, so too much on their plate. They need to have a release activity, so me time essentially. Life is boring, mundane, so they're thrill seeking. And finally, then relationship difficulties. So they're just some of the reasons there why women in particular would gamble. So
Can
the
I
next
just say,
two,
Rowan, sorry to interrupt,
go
but
on, yeah.
just one of the things that Janice had put on the chat there, that the promotion of online bingo seen as joining a community. And I think that the advertising for female gambling is very much that community, family, we're in it together, even if it's something very individual that you're doing, which is very different, isn't it? When you think about the advertising that happens in the middle of a football game for the online, you know, betting for football and things like that. Very different advertising.
It is, and especially myself when I was obviously general manager of the bingo, the way I would advertise certain events and things like that is, come on, grab your friends and come along type of thing. And that would be the way, obviously, to, you're getting multiple people to come along and all at once, aren't you? Again, I've seen it from different sides of the coin now, and which is beneficial for me as well, especially delivering this training now, because I've seen people go through the worst of things. and obviously come out the other side with some good advice as well. So, you know, having me kind of deliver this course as well now, it is beneficial as well.
It is interesting as well that women traditionally will go to the GP earlier if it's mental health related.
Yeah.
But men will seek help quicker for gambling rather than mental health, and the two are so intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
And things like PMDD can often have similar traits to bipolar or behavioural disorders as well. So it takes a wee bit of digging to kind of get to the fact that could this actually be hormonal related rather than behavioural and disorder related.
I think that's interesting. I think they definitely need to do some more research into PMDD as well, because I think it's, you know, there's a lot more to it, I think, as well. So the next few topics we're going to go over now. So you've got the stigma, the myths and the facts. Then we've got the advertisement around gambling, loot boxes and microtransactions, esports betting, and then finally then the support that's available then for women. So we'll start looking at the stigma now. So why do you think women who have a gambling disorder are less likely to seek help? What do you think is stopping them from seeking help?
It's a male dominated addiction.
Yes. That's what they think, yeah. So there's been a couple of things that, you know, they speculated that women are more likely to be and feel more stigmatized for a problem, for a gambling problem, due to perceived failure to live up to expected gender roles. There's been some research on that, which I found quite interesting. They also feel that it's nobody can help me, there's no hope. So basically what I take from that is that the help out there for women in terms of gambling, it's not well advertised at all. So I think there needs to be a lot more out there for that. I think the stigma attached to women as well who gamble, they often feel kind of shame, guilt, especially on their kind of family reputation as well. Women also, gamblers often seen as a character flaw. That's the whole stigma attached to it as well. They often live through fear sometimes as well, that if they admit to having a problem, there may be repercussions like having their children taken off them by social services and things like that. So I think there needs to be a lot more out there for women in terms of gambling. And I think the help now, hopefully, as part of this project, can help expand that and allow more women to kind of seek help when they really need it as well, isn't it?
Is it okay? Can I ask a question? Is there much correlation between gambling behaviors in women and sex, love, and relationship type behaviors? Is there kind of a crossover? Because I'm just thinking, we've got recovery services where we focus on the substances and the SLA stuff, but I don't think gambling has actually ever come up as someone who actually has sought recovery for that, because it's a female recovery house, but we've never had anyone come through with gambling. It's
the most interesting thing I found was that gambling is in many circumstances a secondary addiction. So whereas they could be addicted to drugs or alcohol and things like that, people are often using gambling as a way to kind of feed that other addiction as well. So when they come into treatment, they may not be saying they got a gambling addiction. They may say they got a drug addiction or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that is not entirely being dealt with then, is it?
So it's women are masking. Funny that, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually.
Yeah. So I think we definitely need to break the stigma surrounding women in gambling. So like I said earlier, women are so often the ones who are protecting others in the family. They carry the burden of the debt, the despair, and the hopelessness. They cover up for loved ones. They take on the extra work to try and clear family debts. Women also tend to gamble alone, so when they seek help and support for themselves, they're not often taken seriously. So these are clear and present dangers for women who gamble, and instead of holding it all together and picking up the pieces, We want to be the change that's so urgently needed for women who gamble. So in terms of the myths now that surround gambling, so you got kind of gambling addicts are weak. They have no money to gamble. Gamblers are greedy. Gambling is all about the money. Gambling is not a real addiction because you don't put anything into your body. It's never going to happen to me. I just have an addictive personality. Gamblers are lazy and they just want to make money really quick. Wanting to play first thing in the morning or last thing of the night is perfectly acceptable. And gamblers don't care what they do. So they are the myths surrounding gambling. So let's have a look at some of the facts. So the gambling industry are professionals whose job is to make the product addictive to the human brain. Gambling exploits our natural reward pathways, decision-making and self-control. Brains are attracted to behaviours that rewards us. Gambling addiction is mostly about escaping feelings or searching for an adrenaline rush. People build up a tolerance. So in other words, then they're chasing the highs. They're trying to get it bigger and better each time. And a gambling problem can start at any age. I'll go into that in a bit now, but that's quite scary. So a gambling problem can start at any age. Most of these games now that children play are from ages 7 or above. So that just shows how gambling can start at a very, very young age. So in terms of gambling advertisement, so the advertising around gambling products and services must be undertaken in a socially responsible way, and they must comply with UK advertising codes as well. However, I think we've all seen some of these kind of £100,000, £250,000 on daytime TVs and all that. It's often seen as a quick get-rich scheme, isn't it? And those kind of adverts are hitting the most vulnerable people as well. They just draw them in, and obviously they're trying to get them attracted to gambling. And then, once again, that is a gateway into gambling as well. So we're going to move on now to have a look at some gambling trends, and we're going to start with microtransactions. Have any of you heard of microtransactions, and do you know what they are? No? So microtransactions are purchases made within a game. The game might be free to play, but will contain these microtransactions. So in other words, they are like in-app purchases. Such games include Candy Crush, Fortnite, and Roblox. So I'm sure those with children have kind of heard of those sorts of games as well, I'm sure. Like I said earlier, those sorts of games start from age 7 or above, which is quite scary, really, when you think about it. Myself, I got a boy who absolutely loves Fortnite, and it's scary how much money you could actually spend on that game, and how much of a it could really dig in deep in terms of obviously how much debt you could get into really in terms of that game as well.
And sorry, Ron, can I just interrupt? So you can buy, can't you? I remember when my son was younger. I don't think it was Fortnite, but it was one such. Well, FIFA's the same, isn't it? You can buy FIFA points.
Yeah.
You can buy gift cards for kids that are really for gambling, buying these micro thingies, whatever they're called, whilst playing. It's crazy, isn't it? That's allowed, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in terms of there's no restrictions either. In terms of kind of what those games are, there's endless in terms of what you could spend. There's no spend cap or nothing like that on those sorts of games and things like that, which I find really scary for children. Really scary.
Rowan, can I just ask, what's the difference? I like my iPad. I like doing a jigsaw and playing Texas Hold'em poker for no money.
Yeah.
What's the cross? What causes the crossover? Yeah, adverts pop up like you just said. Then I just ignore them. I wait for them to go. So what? Do you know what I mean? What's the crossover? What causes that?
So, like I said earlier, gambling doesn't always have to do with money. So although you're playing Texas Hold'em for free,
Yeah.
it's still gambling. because you're still getting that adrenaline rush and things like that as well. So although you may not think it's kind of gambling because you're not risking anything, you're still obviously having that feeling, the same feeling.
But
So
it's
is
not
that
causing a problem, is it?
No, no.
It's when yeah, okay, thanks. I'm
As long as
justifying
obviously,
it.
yeah, as long as obviously you can manage that and things like that, and it doesn't escalate, and you're not like, oh, one night then, you're going to put a certain amount of money on and things like that, then that's absolutely fine, And the whole thing of this course is not to say not to gamble. The whole thing of just having the tools and the resources in place to be able to gamble safely. So we'll move on now to have a look at some loot boxes. So any of you heard of loot boxes? No? So loot boxes are consumable virtual items within computer games. So games that user can purchase for real money, they're usually filled with random rewards, but the user will not know the reward until they open the box itself. And the scary thing with this, loot boxes are in more than 60% of games on Google Play and Apple Play Store. And most of those games are all rated for 7 or above. Once again, starting gambling at a very, very young age.
so to use that FIFA thing? Is that when you buy the cards and you don't know what star? I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah, that's that thing. Right, right.
Yeah, that's a loot box. So it opens up then, and that's when you only know what you get when you open the box, isn't it?
Yeah.
So social casinos. So these are free to play gambling games. Ease of access, as customers can choose from different games and access from either a mobile device or a desktop. So these games can also be found on Facebook. And within these games, you do have microtransactions as well, which are available. So customers can purchase gold or credits to enable them to play games within the casino itself. So they're like slot games and things like that, they are. So the next trend I'm going to go through is esports. This one is scary. I don't know if any of you kind of heard of esports. Yeah. So esports betting. So these are multiplayer games played for spectators to watch. They're usually played by professional gamers. And esports betting market is one of the fastest growing betting markets in the world. And in 2024, projected revenue for esports betting is due to reach 2.5 billion. Basically, all that is that you pay to watch professional gamers play. And what they've now started doing now is you can bet on the outcome. So whereas, if you play watching somebody play Fortnite, you can be watching somebody play FIFA or whatever it is. You're watching professional gamers play, and then you can bet on the outcome. Which is scary again, because it's completely unrestricted. It's open to abuse. So that's just something else to kind of be mindful of as well.
And also, particularly around like esports, if you look at a lot of mainstream football clubs have got eFootball, their esports clubs that are under the same banner.
Yeah.
So.
And I've only realised kind of this weekend really that have you ever heard of Dragon Bet? So it's only come out in the last couple of weeks, but whereas only before on Sky Bet and things like that, you can only kind of bet on the kind of first 3 top higher league football teams and things like that, and rugby teams and things like that. But now with Dragon Bet, now you can put a bet on your local team. So on your local team down the road, you can put a bet on that and how many corners it's going to be, the outcome of that game and things like that. It's just this so open to abuse that is scary. And I just think that there needs to be a lot more restriction in place for these type of industries to be producing apps just such as that. So we're going to move on now to have a look at in the more traditional trends of gambling compared to the kind of more modern day related ones. So we'll start off now looking at legislation. So the Gambling Act 2005 covers gaming, betting and participating in a lottery. Not a lot has changed since then, but obviously that needs to change. Technology has ramped up so much that law now is pretty much non-existent, isn't it? It needs to be renewed. So you've got availability and access. So the development in technology has ramped up availability and access to gambling. And a non-stop access to so much gambling means they're likely to lose control, lose a lot of money, and ultimately become addicted. Especially gambling on your smartphone, it's like having a gambling venue in your pocket that never closes, isn't it? Methods of age verification. So these are the type of things that the industries, like the gambling industry, especially in terms of bingo. So when you look at the Gambling Commission, they will do testing based on age verification. So from my past experience, the Gambling Commission would send somebody in around the age of 18. They would go straight to reception, show their ID and things like that, just make sure we're doing our due diligence as well. But what they've started doing now, which I completely agree with, they've started sending somebody in around the same age, but they kind of bypass the reception area, go straight into the main hall, kind of hide amongst the crowd, and then it's down to the manager or the member of staff, whoever it may be, to approach that person to ask them for ID. I think that's a positive change, only because it allows, obviously, the industry to do its best to try and make a difference, isn't it? Rather than just sit back and take the easy way out. At least this way then allows them to kind of lift their head up and realise what's actually happening. So looking at these three factors, so how do you think gambling is more of a risk for people today?
I think with the online stuff, it's more easy accessible. So, you know, they could be on there for a wee quick 10 minutes before the kids come in for school, or they don't need to get babysitters. So I think that's the main reason.
It's just everywhere, isn't it? It's absolutely everywhere.
I think it's more acceptable than drinking and smoking, isn't it? You know, we've eventually banned tobacco advertising. Will we eventually ban gambling and alcohol and things like that?
No,
Well, the thing is,
Because it makes money. Yeah.
It's in your face every day. I mean, you look at a football match. Most of the teams in the Premiership are all sponsored by sports betting. So it's in your face every single day, every night of the week, where your husbands and other things like that, or you guys maybe watching the football. It's in your face all the time. It's there all around you, so it's constantly going into your brain. So that kind of availability and access is just non-stop, isn't it?
There's been quite a few studies into how many ads or gambling content there is during a 90-minute football match, whether it's the hoardings around the board, the team sponsor ads on the TV or online platforms. It's just that constant.
I've got a little video clip as well. So what I'll do is, it's probably not going to work on this call now, but it's I'll send it over on the email as well when I send it to Lucy. But this is really useful for you guys to watch as well. It is 40 minutes, so if you do guys have a spare 40 minutes, give it a watch. But it's really interesting in terms of obviously gambling behaviours and things like that as well. So as part of this course, it'd be really useful for you, okay? So I'll send that over to you as well.
Brilliant, thank you.
So in terms of signs of gambling, so how do you recognise a person who is suffering from gambling harms? What do you think you need to look out for?
Debt, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. What about kind of their emotional state?
Up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Withdrawn, feeling depressed, low mood.
Yeah.
Unless they've won.
Yeah.
Nervous. Yeah.
Also the flip side as well. If they've had a win, it's the elation, it's the big ticket, it's the spending, it's that kind of, I will say, extremes of personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. We often come across people when people are struggling to pay their rent. And sometimes they might eventually, say to the housing manager, I'm struggling because I'm gambling. At which point we're fortunate we've got an internal support service so they can refer into us and we'll help them and try and get them some support around it, the mental health and gambling. So
that's really good. That's really good.
And I suppose, other addictions perhaps are a sign post as well, like you said before.
Can be, yeah. Can be.
But then some people just go on as normal, can't they? They block out. They almost
Compartmentalize.
don't they? Yeah, just.
So like I said earlier, it's because majority of the time they gamble in secret. So when they gamble in secret, they often think it's not real, don't they?
Yeah.
They often think it's not actually them doing it, type of thing.
And
I
plus,
think
the fact that when they're uploading it for their phone and stuff, and the money's coming out, they're not actually having to part with any cash as such.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, although it's coming out the bank, like they're not actually having it. So it kind of feels like it's not really happening.
Yeah.
I think also as well, you'd also see a lot more guys standing outside the bookies at 8:30 in the morning to get the odds on. You wouldn't see a woman doing that because potentially they're going to be doing the school run.
Yeah.
And it's also as well, it's that, I hate to bring it in, but it's the class thing. Gambling doesn't discriminate in terms of whether you experience socio-economic deprivation or whether you're the high end. It's just a bit more the money, it's the same money, it's money is at stake. Just a lot more money or a lot less money.
Yeah. And there's no coincidence really that when you look at where a betting shop is located, it's always in a poverty-ridden area, isn't it? It's never in a high-end rich area and things like that. When you look
Yeah,
down the
they're
high
just
street,
called different things like casinos.
that
Yeah.
is right there. So some of the signs you can look out for. So you got preoccupied, neglecting home life, weight loss, lying on keeping secrets, easily agitated, loss of interest, change of behaviour, excuses not to attend family events, mood swings, you got life admin piling up, risk-taking behaviour, tired, not eating rubbish, seeking money, not making health appointments, lack of self-care, very attached to your phone, isolating, appearing to self-sabotage, and finally then just being very secretive. That's just some of the reasons that some of the signs you can look out for in terms of someone suffering from gambling harms. So we're going to move on now to have a look at some of the interventions that you guys can possibly put into place if someone is suffering from a gambling harm. So set limits for money and time. So never gamble more than you can afford to lose. Now this is clearly different for everybody. So from experience, kind of working the bingo, people would tend to bring in cash rather than their debit cards. I know it's a little bit different now because obviously when you take your phones in and things like that, you can pay on your phone, which is quite dangerous as well. But and in certain aspects now as well, you can pay on credit card as well, which I think is entirely wrong as well. So find ways to deal with your emotions. Training, learn more about the gambling harms and the gambling industry. Use self-exclusion tools. More on this now on the next slide as well. And finally, the biggest thing you could ever say to somebody is accept your losses and do not chase them. All that advice is just kind of in terms of the basic introduction to something to someone suffering from gambling harms. That's just the first step. So they told you they've got an issue and things like that. They want to make a difference. They want to stop. So those are the type of things you could possibly say to somebody. The next step then is possibly in terms of kind of banning yourself on certain issues as well. So with the self-exclusion tools, self-exclusion means obviously stopping yourself from gambling for a period of time. Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's a full year. It's down to the individual to choose how long they want to do it for. So you've got online, they use something called Talk Ban Stop. Bookmakers, they use Moses. High street adult gaming use Bacta. Casinos use Sense. Bingo industry use the bingo industry self-exclusion scheme. And banks as well, you can put blocks on certain gambling sites, not all. Do any of you see a problem with all that?
That it's the people.
It's the poachers
Yeah.
turning keeper. And there's no kind of standardized regulation to it. It's what that sector thinks might work, and there's easy to get out of it because you can because it's self-imposed. You can lift it yourself quite easily.
It's so confusing for someone who's got a gambling addiction to know where to look in terms of self-excluding themselves. If I gamble in the bingo, betting shops, online and things like that, and I want to ban myself, it's going to take me a long time to do it because I've got to go through all this in order to ban myself. There should be something in place where it's all built into one umbrella, under one umbrella. It's nice and easy for somebody who's suffering from a gambling addiction to get the help they need. Because ultimately, this is just the first step.
Yeah.
Ban yourself, self-excluding yourself is just the first step. Ultimately, after this, you need to be speaking to somebody and getting the help you really need.
I used to work with someone who would ban themselves from the slot machines in Newcastle on a Monday, but lift it on a Friday because she got paid on a Friday morning.
It's so difficult.
I mean, benefits, but yeah.
Back about 10 years ago now, you used to be able to ban yourself in just the game machines in the bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is that useful? Because in order to get into a bingo hall, you've got to walk through the gaming area. So ultimately, then you're exposing people to something that they find quite difficult, and then you expect them to kind of sit in a bingo hall and not feel uncomfortable at the fact that there's a game machine probably 5 yards away from them. So I think there's lots more that they can do. It seems to be moving in the right direction, but at a snail's pace.
Is it just too lucrative and too money making to do?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, in terms of kind of gambling, the money they make in the industry is just ridiculous in terms of the money coming in and things like that. It often feels sometimes as if it's dirty money, as if it's come from a bad taste, you know? Whereas, they say then that a certain amount of money will go to gambling charities and things like that. Okay, you're giving money to charity, but then you're not actually taking on any advice to help these people.
But also as well, you're getting tax back from the money that you're donating to charity as part of the corporate stuff. So yeah,
it is. Yeah,
it doesn't cost them anything.
It just so in terms of the signposted to help, some of you may have heard of these. So you've got our Feriad, which does Break Even, ARA, GamCare, Bet No More, National Gambling Support Network, and Gordon Moody, and then finally Epic Restart. Epic Restart is a really good one. It's often done online, but pretty much everybody who works there are people with lived experience. So they're people who've kind of they've had a gambling addiction, they've been through the recovery. Sometimes they've often been through prison as well. They're people from the real rough end of the scale in terms of kind of gambling addictions, and they've gone through it all. So often when they speak to somebody in terms of with a gambling harm, it's really powerful in terms of what they've been through. So that's a really good one as well. But when I send the slides through to you, you will see these as well. So there's another QR code for you to sign, for you to go through as well on the slides, which obviously you guys can't do now. There's also some resources as well. So you've got the Gamble Aware resources, and then the Adferiad website as well, which has got loads on there in terms of resources. But the QR codes, there's going to be 2 QR codes now when I send it through for you guys to fill in, if you can do that for me as well. But apart from that, that's all the information I have to go through today. Do you guys have any questions?
Do you know what, Rowan? I think it's actually been quite useful for a change, almost not to have slides, because I think it's really encouraged us to all get involved in the conversation as we've been going along rather than just listening, which is probably why we don't have as load of questions now. I mean,
no, it's been quite good, and it's been good discussions all the way through, isn't it?
And I think the thing that really, well, a number of things, but one thing perhaps that surprised me is how little I know about some of the terminology around gambling, how little I know about what there is out there to support people, and the fact that it's all run by the people who are pushing the gambling anyway. And there's got to be something about awareness raising, hasn't there, as well, particularly with it being so hidden and because of the stigma attached. And, you know, just thinking about my experience of working in social housing, you know, with the likes of Lisa and Charlotte, you know, about awareness raising for people who are on the front line delivering our services, be those income collection or the support services, you know, knowing more to be able to support people more effectively.
No, yeah, definitely, and it's obviously the stigma attached to it as well. It's just crazy in terms of obviously women feeling the need to kind of not come forward, get the help they really need. It's scary. It is scary, and I'm hoping now that, you know, with this kind of project as well, that awareness can start building now as well, and the signposting for help is going to be more well known as well.
I think it's quite scary as well how there's almost an element of grooming going on with children, isn't there? When you're saying about like 7+, we've got all these pop-ups coming in the games. We all jest about how our phones listen to us and an advert pings up. Then you've got all of this advertising during sports games and things like that. We're almost, particularly with technology and the way the world works now, we're almost grooming these young people into being gamblers as they get older, isn't it? It's like the government are saying, right, we're going to have the first smoke-free generation in your dreams, but, you know, carry on with that. But you're replacing it with something much more dangerous.
Yeah, it's a different monster. Gambling is a different monster, and like, I think it's often not seen as an addiction as well, because obviously you've got the big ones in terms of kind of drugs and alcohol and things like that as well. Which gambling is often seen as but gambling is so often the one that's probably the, you know, it could be one of the most powerful ones as well. They could land you into quite a lot of trouble as well.
It's seen as the most, I don't know whether it's from a kind of societal point of view, it's seen as the least dangerous, but actually it's the most dangerous because it's affecting so many people. And as you say, the increase in women and kind of how secretive they can be, because we, you know, and it scares you. It really does. It's been really interesting.
It's interesting as well that of a lot of the addictions, like training stuff you do, very, it's almost like gambling is a side of the, because it focuses on that. And even when you look at safeguarding, addictions, you can kind of tie it under self-harm, self-neglect, but they still don't want to kind of involve it as bring it in under the safeguarding umbrella, which potentially it should be because of its impact.
100%.
I am conscious, everybody, of the time. So that hour has absolutely flown by. So can I say a huge thank you to Rowan, and apologies to everybody else that we didn't manage to get the slides work, but my glass is always half full. So I think it's actually been of quite a benefit because we've had more of a discussion. So there we go. But what we will do, obviously, is send out all of the slides for everybody. We've got those QR codes on and that information. So you'll all have that soon popping into your email inboxes, along with all of the other emails that I'm sure will be popping in as well. So can I just say thank you, everybody, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.